And I would now like to introduce to you one of this year's 100 honorees, Dr. Keith Flaherty. Dr. Flaherty, I know you're out there somewhere. Will you please stand and be recognized? I now have the pleasure of introducing you to John Murphy, a retired lawyer and lifelong outdoorsman from Colorado, who was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma in the fall of 2010. In 2010, there was no standard effective treatment for metastatic melanoma, and his physician in Denver told him there was really nothing that could be done. It was John's brother Marty who encouraged John to come to Mass General. John's tumor tested positive for the BRAF mutation, and his treatment options changed drastically in that one moment under the care of Dr. Flaherty and Dr. Don Lawrence. John is with us tonight with his wife, Mary, and I'd like to invite him to say a few words. John.
Thank you, Dr. Haber. What a privilege to be here in Boston with you tonight. And I have the opportunity to honor Drs. Flaherty, Drs. Chabner, and Dr. Lawrence, and of course, Mass General. This is a story of how they saved me. Last fall, my chronic hip pain was diagnosed as a tumor that had barnacled onto my pelvis. My brother, Dr. Martin J. Murphy, an acclaimed cancer researcher, directed me to the General, as he fondly calls Massachusetts General Hospital. Here they determined that I not only had cancer in my hip, but also tumors in both lungs, and one was the size of a hockey puck. The hip and the later lung biopsies proved that I had the dreaded diagnosis of 4th stage metastatic melanoma. Chemo is not effective, and while the radiation could blast the tumor on my hip, it would turn my lungs to scar tissue. Surgery was not an option because it had spread to most of the lobes of my lungs. They were harboring the cancer. I thought that the Reaper was coming after me with his scythe and was backing me into a corner. In Colorado, a highly acclaimed oncologist told me there was no hope, and to get my affairs in order, it had simply progressed too far and too fast, and there was no treatment. But my brother Marty, he had another idea. Marty told me exciting things were happening in the world of cancer research. And for me not to believe any information that I would read on the internet older than 6 months. He told me that Dr. Flaherty had lifted the curtain higher in the unknown world of DNA and therapeutics. Researchers had found that a mutated BRAF cell, or BRAF gene, I should say, was associated with melanoma. And he called Drs. Flaherty, Chabner, and Lawrence and asked them to study my genome to see if my melanoma, which they had found was melanoma at that point, was caused by the BRAF mutation. When I first came to the General, I was on the arm of my wife, Mary, and I used a cane, and I had the shakes and pain and a troubled mind. No matter how I was cheered, I really didn't feel any hope, in all honesty. When I ran out of strength, I had to use Mary and some of her inexhaustible supply. Marty, my guide, he stressed optimism and hope. Dr. Flaherty came to see me the day of my lung biopsy, which is a procedure that will definitely fight off boredom. He encouraged me, and he said they would do all they could for me, but he couldn't allow me into the trial unless and until the test came back from the biopsy showing that I had this BRAF mutation. But his face, his demeanor, and his beautiful big smile started to crack the desperation I felt so deeply. After a few weeks of suspense, Marty received an email from Dr. Chabner, and it said, "We have struck gold." I was part of the 60% of melanoma patients that have the BRAF mutation, and I was allowed into this very unique clinical trial. This gave me the opportunity to spend time with Dr. Donald Lawrence, the first to think, before any test results came back, that I had melanoma and not the sarcoma that the Colorado doctors thought I had. Marty calls Dr. Lawrence the motherboard of knowledge in melanoma. And real hope came to me after this. It came to me from his soft but penetrating eyes as he gently promised me my tumors would shrink and my pain would fade. All I had to do was take 2 different types of pills every day. And soon I felt the difference. I fondly call these pills Smith & Wesson. They're the partners that go in there and kill that melanoma. I am in my 5th month of sending Smith and Wesson after the cancer, and the tumors are gone, or just a wisp of their former selves. I am again following my passion of being a granddad and climbing Colorado's mountains. I'm just as strong physically as I ever was, but I'm much stronger mentally. I have more depth and appreciation and gratitude. I want to help those physicians and MGH bring my hope to those that have this disease and let them know that what was once thought of as incurable has been cracked by the scrutiny of science. I want patients to feel the hope that I have because I am walking proof that it works, not just in the halls of Massachusetts General Hospital, but in the mountains of Colorado. I want others like me to know that we are pushing forward these discoveries by participating in clinical trials, and because the discoveries in melanoma and other cancers help breakthroughs in cancer itself. But most of all, I want people to remember that there is hope. And hope is the quiet but essential elixir that leads to recovery. There are those here tonight who honor these physicians and the men and women who work with them in their research teams far better than I. They have more knowledge and understanding of what they have accomplished in making the medical history that they have. But you won't soon find one with more love or gratitude for them than I. And that overwhelming feeling extends to the General, where we all came together. Thank you for listening to my story.